Welcome to my online IELTS class video where I'm going to explain to you about my online IELTS classes. Firstly, I'm going to start with a brief overview, then I'm going to get into more details. So to tell you briefly, my online IELTS classes consist of 35 plus hours of teaching videos and 400 plus pages of teaching notes, templates, exercises, homework, so on and so forth. And new teachings, videos and notes will be added regularly for free for my online IELTS class students. Now, all this is already available online in the platform, which I'm going to show you very soon. Okay, this has produced over 450 plus IELTS passes. The content, it addresses listening, reading, writing, and speaking, the 4 components of the IELTS exam. It also addresses grammar and vocabulary. I do not believe in just focusing on listening, reading, writing, and speaking because grammar and vocabulary both are important for all components here, but also especially for writing and speaking, especially for writing, which is the most difficult component. So I do address grammar and vocabulary, and I'll explain a bit about that later because I address it in 2 ways. And I also address academic and general training, and this is for paper, computer, or online IELTS. The total study time needed is about 40 to 100 hours. There's a fortnightly live Zoom class where you can ask questions. The main focus of these live Zoom classes is for asking questions, and also some activities may be given. Please take note, the main teachings are not in the Zoom classes. The main teachings are already on the platform, so you can start immediately. The moment you pay for access, you can start learning immediately. And of course, my WhatsApp number is given to all my students to ask me any question, right? I used to charge $500 to $600 for my face-to-face classes, but this online IELTS classes is only $400. But for the launch of this class, there's a discount, and the discounted price is $250. Now, whether you are watching this video during the launch or after the launch, I'm not sure. If it's during the launch, then the price will be $250. If it's after the launch, it will be $400. You just have to ask me whether this is during the launch or after the launch period. In this video, I'm going to touch on these things, not just more about my online IELTS classes in detail, but I am also going to touch on these various areas. For example, the differences between my IELTS materials and materials from other established IELTS textbooks. Am I just giving the same thing you can find in textbooks? No. The difference between my current online IELTS classes and my previous face-to-face classes. How I help students address their vocabulary and grammar in 2 ways. Why doing IELTS mock test is the wrong way to prepare for the IELTS exam. Very important. Why 60 to 80% fail their IELTS exam on their first attempt, and many do so over and over again, not just on their first attempt, but second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th, so on and so forth. The 3 components of proper IELTS preparation. The cost of my IELTS classes compared to other IELTS classes in Singapore, and 11 factors to consider when choosing an IELTS preparation class. So I used to teach face-to-face classes, IELTS classes from 2012 to 2022. These are pictures from 2015 onwards. As you can see, I taught in classes mostly during the weekends, almost every weekend from 2015 to 2022, except for some weekends when I went on holiday, so I took a break. But almost every weekend I'll be teaching, and also some weekdays. So this is what my previous face-to-face classes consisted of, right? $600, $500, then $600. And then right now I'm going to talk about my online IELTS classes because I do not provide face-to-face classes anymore. And the reason why is because my online IELTS classes is going to be much more effective. Stay through this video and you understand why. All right. So my online IELTS classes consist of everything that I used to teach in my previous face-to-face classes. Everything. But more. Okay. More teachings, videos and notes, better teachings, better materials. I'll talk about that later. Better absorption of teachings because it can actually be viewed online and over again. Many students used to ask me, can I attend this class or that class again because, they didn't understand it completely. I would say no, because obviously they can't attend a class again. Then they'll be attending a class twice, and that'll be unfair to other students. But that's what my teachings are like. They're very challenging, and I realize that if I put them online, they can be replayed over and over again. That's actually going to benefit the student, right? So they will absorb the teachings better. Number 4, more support from me. I'll explain this to you later. Number 5, cheaper. Of course, as you saw the price, $250 for the launch price, $400 for the normal price versus $600. Number 6, better study mindset. And number 7, more consistent study routine. I'll explain all these 7 things to you throughout this video. So let's start right now. As I mentioned, 35 hours plus of teaching videos, 400 plus pages of notes, templates, exercises, right? It has produced 450 plus IELTS passes, addresses listening, reading, writing, speaking, grammar and vocabulary, academic and general training, and this is for paper, computer, or online IELTS. So all this is already on the learning platform. As you can see, the videos are there. You can go through them. You can play the videos. The notes are also there. And you will also get included 50 plus pages of essay templates and appendices. This is really what has helped many of my students. Actually, an earlier version, which is only 18 pages. Now you have 50 plus pages of templates, which is much better in many ways. But an earlier version was really responsible for helping most of my students, or those 450, actually pass their IELTS exam and pass their IELTS writing. Okay, that was the early version. For this online IELTS classes, for the launch of this class, I actually came up with a much better version. Now, as I said, the 35 plus hours of videos and 400 pages of notes are already on the platform. You can have a look at this here. Okay, IELTS listening, reading, speaking, writing task 1, academic general training. So you get whichever you are taking, whether it's academic or general training, writing task 2, and then these whole 3 courses on grammar, which is very intensive, but it's going to stretch you. It's going to really help you improve your grammar and vocabulary, which is very important for your writing, your speaking, but also, just for IELTS in general. It's going to help you a lot, right? But you have to put in the work. So this is a GIF file just showing you, if you scroll down through the course or the lessons. This is an example of the teaching video. You just click on it and the video will play. These are the notes you can get online. All right, a lot of notes, a lot of materials. I'll give you the links to these notes. Now, the templates, one of the most unique things about my IELTS class, right, has helped hundreds of my students pass. So let me talk a bit about the templates, because it is probably the most unique thing about my IELTS classes over the last 10 years. Writing is, of course, the most difficult component, and writing task 2, the essay writing, is the most difficult component in the IELTS exam. So what are essay templates? Essay templates are essay structures with pre-written, that is prepared beforehand, high-level phrases, words, phrases, sentences. So you just need to fill in the blanks during the exam. Now, this is taken from what I call level 2 IELTS template. I think this was in 2014, if I'm not wrong. Okay, now I have level 3. I'll talk about that later. But this is an earlier version, just to show you what a template is like. These words are already available. This is for one particular essay type, of causes and solutions essay question. So there are words which are already available that you can use and memorize. But of course, you have to fill in the blanks with other aspects of of this essay. Okay, you still have to. It's not a memorized essay. Words and phrases, the structures there, words and phrases and sentences are there that you can use, so that you don't need to think so much. Now, these words and phrases and sentences would be, there would be no grammar mistake. It will be good in terms of its grammar, its vocabulary, its cohesion, so on and so forth. Right. Now, how I created my IELTS essay templates when I was teaching IELTS in other schools, I used all the well-known IELTS textbooks, but I didn't really like them, as they didn't really help my students a lot, okay? Especially for writing, which is the most difficult component of IELTS. A lot of IELTS textbook materials were filled with very general guidelines that didn't really help my students. I started to develop my own very unique and effective IELTS preparation materials, but I wasn't able to use them at the schools I taught. So actually, I decided to start my own school and dedicated it solely to IELTS preparation, where I could use these materials. So this is an example. These are actually taken from some of the more well-known IELTS textbooks. This is them telling you how to write a essay, the introduction paragraph, the body paragraph, the conclusion paragraph. Okay, this is just a fraction of my IELTS book collection that I have. And this is what they give you. All the textbooks, they give you very general guidelines only. And this is what I've created over the last 10 years for my students. This is taken, like I said, from the level 2 template. This was in 2014. Recently, I created a new version, which is, this was only 12 pages in total. This is 53 pages. I created a new version for my online IELTS classes, right? So it's much more in-depth in many areas, much better in terms of vocabulary, grammar, so on and so forth. So, this is a template. Level 2, 2014, 12 pages, and I continue to improve it. 18 pages, level 2B in 2016, and then finally, this is a 53-page IELTS essay template. This really helps you in your writing task 2, right? It teaches you a lot, and it also gives you a lot of words and phrases that you can use and memorize. Again, this is not a memorized essay, but this is really going to help you in improving your writing score. What I'm going to give you, if you stay to the end, I'll tell you later how to get it, is that I'm going to give you 2 pages out of the 18 pages of level 2B essay template. This is not the one I give my students now. This was the one I used to give my students for many years, right? I'll just give you one of them so you can see exactly how beneficial these are in order to help you do better in your IELTS writing. All right, this is just 2B now for my new students. From 2022, you have this level 3 version. Now, let me show you exactly what I mean by templates and why they are so useful, okay? Say, for example, if a question like this, more and more people are using their mobile phones everywhere they go, and this is causing a lot of antisocial behavior in society. What are the reasons for this and what solutions could you suggest? So this is what I call a causes and solutions essay, right? Let's just focus on the introduction paragraph of the IELTS essay so that you can see the difference between what normal IELTS textbooks, what they give you, what they provide, the aid they provide you, the help they provide you, and versus how you can write your introduction paragraph and the whole essay. But we're just focusing on the introduction paragraph right now. How you can, if you use the templates, how you can write your introduction paragraph much more easily, right? So again, this is what IELTS textbooks tell you. Okay, basically what they're saying for the introduction paragraph is you paraphrase the question in your own words, and then you explain what you're going to discuss in the essay. 2 sentences, okay? Now, for me, the templates I give my students, okay, this is basically much more detailed, many more words and phrases. I don't just give you some general details like that, okay, general guidelines like that. No, I give you a lot of details, a lot of words and phrases, explain how to use them. We're just going to use this part, okay? It's taken from here. So if you are going by IELTS textbooks, this is what's going to happen. You're just going to paraphrase the question in your own words, okay? You're going to do it by yourself, right? You have my templates. All this yellow part, it's already done for you. You just have to fill in the white part, okay? Because it's already giving you some words and phrases that are very useful for your writing. The second sentence, again, is you're going to write by yourself, right? What you're going to discuss in this essay, you're going to come up with your own words by yourself. But for me, I've already given them, especially for this essay question type, which is a causes and solutions question type, I've given them pretty much the whole sentence. And these are all alternative vocabulary, different words and phrases you can choose. That's why I don't give everybody the same thing. I'm not my students are not going to write exactly the same thing. Why? Because there are alternative vocabulary, alternative structures that they can use, right? So this is what's going to result very quickly. They don't have to think, right? They write it out like that. Of course, they have to memorize it, right? They have to memorize one version that they like of it. And they don't have to think about, oh, how am I going to write the second sentence? No, it's already provided for them already. So this, just for the introduction paragraph, almost all of it is provided for them already. I mean, of course, they still have to do, write a few words here and there. You still have to think a bit. I'm not giving you an essay to memorize. That's impossible, right? But you can see how this helps you and how this does really help you if you're given general guidelines. Okay, so which one would you prefer? Textbooks, which give you very general guidelines on how to write an IELTS essay, or templates that provide high-level specific words, phrases, and sentences to help you write your essay in a more effective and efficient way. So let me show you some testimonials from my students who have used my templates. Okay, so Iro said she just followed my pattern, which basically means my templates that I gave her. She got 7.0. She increased from 6 to 7 after coming to my class. Now, sometimes getting an increase in 0.5 is already difficult. Okay, so getting an increase of 1.0 is a very good achievement. Eileen, she did quite badly in her reading, and she wanted to walk out of the hall without doing the writing, but she continued to stay on. She followed the template, and she improved from 6.5 to 7, right? So she got 6.5 twice, and then she came to my class, then she used the template, she got 7. Okay, she said that these templates are idiot-proof. Tia, okay, improved from 6.5 also to 7 for writing because of the templates. Hugh repeated writing, typing these structures, which means the templates over and over again until he memorized them. During the exam, it was just filling in the blanks, right? Because the templates already provide you the words and phrases and sentences for some parts of the essay, not the whole thing. That's why it's not memorizing an essay, but some parts of the essay will already be in the templates, so you just need to memorize them and you will get a good score because the templates provide you with very good words, phrases, sentences with good vocabulary, grammar, so on and so forth, right? So all you have to do is regurgitate, whatever you've memorized, just write it out quickly without thinking, but you still have to fill in the blanks. Of course, you still have to fill in the blanks with your own ideas and points, right? But it's so much easier because you don't have to spend so much time thinking about how to write those phrases and words and sentences that you've already memorized. That's how you're able to improve your writing score. Wani did the same thing, okay? Memorize all the writing formats, and then again, it was like fill in the blanks, okay? So it saves you time so that you can focus on your ideas and other parts of the content. It helps you to improve your writing. So even for these 4 people, okay, Mawandi, he failed 15 times over 2 years, always got 6.5, came to my class, and then after that, used the templates. Then finally, after 15 times of failing, he got 7.0 after coming to my class. And he also went to 3 other workshops and classes before that. It didn't help him to get his 7.0, right? Joyce, Boomer, Winston, they failed 7 to 8 times. They always got less than what they were required by 0.5. Okay, these 2 got 6.5 while they needed 7. And Winston got 7.5 while he needed 8. So anyway, they failed many times, and then they came to my class. Then after that, they passed finally. I want to talk about grammar and vocabulary because this is very important. Okay, grammar is very important for writing and for speaking. But let me just show you for writing. Okay, if you get 7 for task response, 7 for coherence and cohesion, 7 for lexical resource, which is vocabulary, but you make too many grammatical mistakes because it says here produces frequent error-free sentences. This basically means to the examiner that you cannot make too many grammar mistakes. If according to the examiner you make too many grammar mistakes, what you're going to get is 6 rather than 7. That's going to pull down your score to 6.5. That's why so many students get stuck at 6.5 and they do the exam over and over again, they still get 6.5. They can't seem to get 7. Why? Because if you don't improve your grammar and vocabulary, especially your grammar, you're not going to get 7. Okay, so grammar and vocabulary is important for both writing and speaking. So I did 2 things to address my students' poor grammar and vocabulary. Most students have very poor grammar and vocabulary. Number 1, of course, I already showed you the IELTS essay templates. Okay, this is structure for all essay question types, pre-written words, phrases, and sentences with high-level grammar, vocabulary, and cohesion, and you just fill in the blanks. Right? So if you use the templates, the words and phrases that you memorize, the sentences that you memorize, consists of good grammar and vocabulary and cohesion, and therefore you will score well. Right? Of course, it's also structured in such a way because I've created it so that you are also doing well in your coherence, the structure of your essay. So the templates will help you in your grammar and vocabulary, especially your grammar. Right? If you use those words and phrases I give you, because they do not have grammatical mistakes. But that's not the only thing, because I also teach students grammar and vocabulary in depth. Okay, I go in depth into grammar and vocabulary. I use two ways to try to help my students in grammar and vocabulary. Provide them with the essay templates, but don't forget, even with the essay templates, you still got to fill in the blanks, right? So I also teach them grammar and vocabulary, right? Both have a role to play. Essay templates that minimize the number of mistakes you make, improve your grammar and vocabulary and cohesion, and also in-depth teachings on grammar and vocabulary. So my grammar and vocabulary class, probably the most challenging class, the teaching I'm most proud of, along with the essay templates, and by far the most rewarding long-term for my students. Why? Because the templates is going to help you in your IELTS essay writing, but you have no use for it after that. It's just to help you to do well so that you can pass. But the grammar and vocabulary is also to help you to do well in your IELTS writing, because you still have to fill in the blanks, right? You still have to come up with your own ideas, and you still have to write words and sentences. So I also teach you grammar and vocabulary, so that for words that you have to, the blanks that you have to fill in, you will minimize the number of grammatical and vocabulary mistakes that you make, right? So that also helps you in your essay, but it's also going to help you in your English in general, because that's why I say it's long term, because it's going to help you to improve your grammar and vocabulary as you write, as you speak, as you go to other countries, as you study, as you work in social situations, in business situations. You're going to carry what you've learned forever, okay, way beyond the IELTS exam. So it's important to go through this also, and I push my students to really improve their grammar and vocabulary, right? If you're still unsure about the quality and the uniqueness of my teachings and notes and templates, here's what some of my previous students have mentioned, okay, about my teachings, okay? I've learned a lot more than other IELTS classes. No one can copy an IELTS teaching in Singapore. Quality of your teaching he provides is much more than what you see online and in books. My mum sent me to a lot of tuition classes, but so far your materials is the best I've seen. The pattern I'm writing, which of course means the templates that I give students, was too good. I never found anywhere else. Most detailed notes I received, I don't find in any other schools. The materials provided can't be found in any other school. Alright, here's Mawandi. He came to my class a few years ago. He took the IELTS about 14 or 15 times. He failed his writing consistently. He got 6.5 rather than 7, which he needed to get to pass his IELTS. And he came to my class, used my templates, and then he passed. He got 7.0 after attending my class. So this is what he said. He said, over the past 2 years, I've sat for IELTS at least 15 times. I've attended at least 3 IELTS workshops and classes. Jonathan's class is the cheapest I've found on the market and the best I've experienced. And this is another testimonial by Sora, who also came to my class a few years ago. And this is what she said. She said that I wasted so much time and money in other schools and tuition. I had tuition, that's one-to-one tuition with this particular tutor. I went to this other school. I'm not going to reveal the name. I forgot to mention I was also what student, another school, but I don't think that helped me. All useless. You went straight to the point, practical and skillful, but they just wasted my time because they had no techniques. Thank you so much for your real IELTS class. And that's she actually passed her IELTS exam after attending my class. Again, let me remind you that almost all the testimonials, comments, and feedback you read here on my website and in this video are about my previous teaching materials, okay? My essay template level 2 and 2B, and not my latest ones. All these students didn't get to use my latest level 3 IELTS essay templates released specially for the launch of my online IELTS classes, okay? So let me just quickly go through this with you. So these are all the templates. I started to create them in, when I started to specialize in IELTS and I started my own IELTS school. 2012, this is what I call level 1 essay templates. It didn't really, it's much better than not having any help from the textbook, but it's very different from what I call my level 3, which I give to my students right now. It just gave you the structure. This is in about 2012. And then 2014 or so, I came out with level 2, all right, which I'm going to show you. Actually, I showed you this just now already. Remember, just fill in the blanks. So this was 12 pages. And then in 2016, I started to add alternative vocabulary and structures so that my students do not use all the same words. All of my students don't use the same thing, because if I give this to them, everybody's going to copy the same thing, right? So from 2016 to 2021 or so. This was what I gave my students, and this is basically the majority of my students who really passed. Really, it started from them using this, okay, from 2016 onwards. Most of the 450 IELTS passes because they use this, right? And with the launch of my online IELTS classes in 2022, I've come up with what I call level 3, much better in grammar complexity, in vocab, in cohesion, etc., etc. 53 pages in total, right? This has just been released. So most of the testimonials, the comments that you've seen were about my previous materials, not this one. Okay, and of course, a lot of other materials have changed over the years because I make my materials better and better, right? And 2022 onwards, I'm going to talk about this later because I'm creating level 4 and level 5, but let's discuss that later, okay? And of course, all these students didn't also get to use all the additional new materials that I'm adding regularly. So the next point is that I will be adding new teachings, videos, and notes and templates regularly, and it's going to be free for my students. So I showed this to you just now. So this is what I'm doing right now. I'm going to show you a bit about what I've been creating. It is not finished yet, but I want to show you, and I'm also going to give you some of the materials that I've been creating. Level 4 to me is where I focus on main points, sentence templates, and level 5 supporting point sentence templates. I won't explain too much. So let me give you a sneak peek of new materials I'm creating now, which I'm going to give to my students of my online classes for free when available, right? So I showed this to you just now. Level 2 templates, right? And of course, this is from 2014, I think. And that's an old version. But, level 3 is the 53 pages from 2022. But let me just use this image first because it's kind of easier to show you what I'm trying to do, okay? So for the templates, whether it's level 2 or level 3, okay, it just gives you these general words that will help you, but it will not give you the whole, it will not give you words and points, etc., for the whole essay, because I'm not asking you to memorize an essay. That is impossible, okay? I'm giving you words that you can use, but you still have to fill in with your points. So I was thinking to myself, after I've created this, can I create some main points for students so they can fill in the blanks more easily? Because they still have to fill in the blanks, right? All these red dotted lines are all blanks that they have to fill in. So can I take that burden off them as much as I can and give them words and phrases and sentences so that they can memorize some words and phrases and sentences and thus not have to think so much, and thus the words and phrases and sentences I give my students will of course also be better than they can create by themselves. So I started creating what I'm going to call my level 4 essay template, which is really a template of sentences for main points. I started doing it first with the causes and solutions IELTS essay question type, because whatever causes and solutions question you get, it's very likely that you could prepare in advance some general solutions that fit many problems. Very important. If you can prepare in advance some general solutions that fit many problems, you can prepare in advance. And that's how I do it for my templates. That's the philosophy behind my templates. Certain things can be prepared. I'm going to prepare for my students, right? So I'm taking this, further in terms of, can I prepare main points and main sentences for main points for my students? So let me give you an example. So for example, this is a causes and solutions essay. And here, words and phrases are already given to my students. Of course, this is level 2. Level 3 is much more complex in terms of the grammar and the vocabulary and the cohesion and all that. All right. So the level 3 will be much better than this. But then still, level 3, level 2, whatever, there will still be blanks to fill in. So if this is a causes and solutions essay, you talk about the causes here, you talk about solutions here. I just said just now, I know that for whatever causes and solutions question you get, it's very likely that you could prepare in advance some general solutions that fit many problems. So many questions, whatever question you get, most likely I can give you some general solutions in advance. So for example, I've come up with 4. A general approach of education or providing funding or resources, a carrot approach, which means you're rewarding people, or stick approach, which means you're punishing people. Okay, and these are the specific actions. These are words and phrases and good collocations already that you can use. So, for example, if you have these 2 questions, both are causes and solutions, based on the table I just showed you, you can already come up with 2 main solutions, right? One's educate, one's reward, one's funding, one's punishment. Okay, this is all taken from here. All right. So whatever question you get, most likely you can use 4 of these. Maybe 1 or maybe 2, maybe 3 out of 4. I don't know. Depends on the question. But these are general solutions that will fit most problems. So this is actually good. This is what is part of my level 4 sentence templates, but these are just ideas. So this is nice, but not good enough, right? So I was thinking, as a teacher with 10 years IELTS teaching experience, I know that if I were to give the above resource to students, they will like it, but most would still use the above and create phrases and sentences filled with grammatical and collocation mistakes. Why? Because I didn't give them sentences, I just gave them ideas. I just gave them a few phrases here and there, which are good. Don't get me wrong. It's much better than they can do by themselves, probably. But they still have to create the sentence, right? So, because I'm giving them only ideas and not ready-made templates of sentences, so they're probably going to make many grammar mistakes. So anyway, I asked myself this. What else can I do for my students so that they don't take the above ideas and create sentences filled with grammar and vocabulary mistakes? So I started to think of how I can create sentences based on these 4 ideas, these 4 general approaches. So I started with the first one, right? So I created this. So this is basically, this will be the main point. Based on this approach, the government could launch a nationwide campaign to raise public awareness about the importance. You got to fill in the blanks with whatever the issue is in your question. Then this is the next sentence which will come after this sentence, or you could choose this, or you could choose this. Of course, when you see all these slashes like that, whether single or double, it means you choose one from the various options, right? Because I'm always trying to give alternative vocabulary and words and phrases for students to use, so that not all my students are going to use exactly the same thing, right? So start with this, then the first supporting sentence could be this or this, and then it can end with this. So this is already pretty much one solution expanded for this based on these level 4 sentence templates. Okay, the thing that the words that are in bold and underline are words that students have to fill in. But you see how many words are already, already provided for you in the templates. That's what a template does. It provides you words, right? So that you just have to fill in some blanks. So again, what I'm doing for level 4, which I'm currently creating right now, is that I am making it such that rather than you filling in so many words, you have this, and it's going to be so much easier to write your solutions, and it's going to be much better than you can write by yourself. Okay, so this is how level 4 goes further than just giving you general phrases for various question types, but it's also trying to give you, and I'm creating it at the moment, trying to give you also main points and supporting points, right? So this is basically what I'm doing, for 2022. Going to do level 4, going to do level 5. I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but it will be given to my students. Now, stay to the end, because I will be giving this to you, all right? All this is going to be given to you. Now, so that's related to new teachings, videos, and notes that are added regularly for free. Okay, in case you haven't realized this by now, my teachings and materials are not just very unique, but also very challenging. They are unique. You're not going to find them anywhere because I created them over the last 10 years, I've been creating all these materials, but they're challenging too. When you look at all this, it's not easy to understand. You need to think a bit. Because of course you are going to get so much help through it, you need to use your mind a bit. It's challenging to understand this, but the results is that you are going to get a better score, right? So I don't teach to the LCD. LCD meaning lowest common denominator. Lowest common denominator teaching is teaching that's so easy and simple that every student will have no problems understanding what's being taught, and nobody will complain that it's too difficult or challenging, because you're aiming your teaching at the lowest level in the class. The lowest level in the class, so that everybody will understand. You don't want anybody not to understand. Therefore, you got to aim it at the lowest level. Or some people call it dumbed down teaching, which is basically making your teaching and material so simple and intellectually undemanding so that it will be accessible to everyone. Now, I don't do all this, all right? Because I've been teaching for many years. I used to use all those textbooks, and I realized they didn't help my students. I realized how simple stuff, simple teaching, simple, low-level kind of teaching and materials are not going to help my students. So I started to create my own, and it is challenging to be able to understand those materials, definitely. All right, so, many schools and courses teach to the lowest common denominator. Okay, firstly, because their IELTS teaching materials are based on popular IELTS textbooks, and these textbooks are very simple because they have to cater to all levels and all people, as this will increase the sales. You don't want to have too difficult a textbook because not many people are going to buy it, right? So it's going to be very simple. They're not going to give you too many specific details. They're always giving you a lot of general guidelines, like I showed you just now, right? And a lot of, for schools, their teachers are just hired English teachers who don't specialize in IELTS and don't have much experience teaching IELTS. And so these teachers are only familiar with and comfortable with very basic IELTS teachings. Most schools, their teachers are hired, obviously, and they don't specialize in IELTS. I have my own school, and I've been teaching and I've been specializing in IELTS for 10 years. And if they are a hired teacher, it's easier to use the textbooks because they don't have their own materials. So they just use the popular textbooks, and it's very simple, right? With LCD or DD teaching materials, there will be no complaints from weaker students who can't follow the class. So many teachers and many schools are concerned, we have to cater to the lowest level. If not, students are going to complain it's too difficult. And, well, you don't get students complaining it's too difficult, but then again, students do not improve, and that's the problem. I have to admit, it was like that 10 plus years ago. Okay, I used to use all these textbooks, used to use all these materials with very general guidelines, very simple, right? When I just started teaching IELTS, I had to use textbooks because I didn't know how to teach IELTS. Nobody tells you how to teach IELTS, by the way. There's no cost to teach IELTS. You got to learn from scratch. And my materials and teachings were very simple and basic, just what I found in IELTS textbooks. Now, of course, with 10 plus years of IELTS teaching experience, my materials and teachings have become so much better, so much more helpful to students, and so much more effective. Now, I did not say simpler. They have actually become more complicated and more challenging. But that's the reason why so many of my students pass, right? Students won't improve much if they're not challenged, okay? That's my problem with all this LCD, DD teaching. Stronger students will not benefit much from such teachings. Ultimately, students won't be fully prepared for the IELTS exam, and many will not pass IELTS. So my teachings and my materials definitely will challenge you. I'm not saying it's easy. They are not simple or easy. They are intensive and detailed. A lot of it is unique, and you will not find it elsewhere in popular textbooks online, as I created a lot of the materials myself over the last 10 years. This will stretch you and push you and challenge you, and you will have to work hard. But that is precisely the reason why so many of my students have passed their IELTS exam. Okay, because I push my students. Of course, I can only go so far. Most of my students are adults. I'm not going to force them to do things, but as adults, you should understand that you have to put in hard work. All right. If you don't put in the hard work, obviously you're not going to do well. You're not going to pass. That should be understood. If you want an easy class where you won't have to work hard, go to another school or take another course, because I'm not in the business of making things easy. I'm in the business of helping students pass their exam. Sometimes I got to push students. Sometimes I give them materials that on the first glance for them, they may think, oh man, this is complicated. But that's reality. That's life. I mean, nothing comes easy. So if you really want to do well and improve, then you have to look through and understand those materials. It will take time. All right. You cannot go to a class and within 10 or 20 hours of teachings, everything is going to be you're going to pass your IELTS. That doesn't work, right? I know what works. And I put in a lot of effort creating materials like the essay templates that will help you work smart, but you also need to put in the hard work. If you want to fulfill your dreams to immigrate or to study in another country, then you need to work hard, right? Now, even though the strategies I teach and the materials I provide are challenging, you don't have to worry that the teachings are too difficult for you to understand. Why? That's because you can play the videos over and over again until you understand it. The whole point of having an online class is like that, right? So your videos are already there. It's recorded. It can be played over and over again, right? So you can learn at your own pace, something that you can't do in a face-to-face class. Now, in my face-to-face class, I have to admit, many students came up to me and said, Jonathan, your teachings are very challenging. Can I take this class again? Can I take that class again? Well, they can't take the class again because that's the reality of face-to-face teaching, right? Okay. And that's why one of the many reasons I've also decided to go online, because the teachings that will help students to pass the exam and really improve a lot are going to be challenging. And if they are challenging, I want it online so that they can listen to it and replay it over and over again. This can't be done in a face-to-face class. So the total study time needed will be about 40 to 100 hours. You can't put in minimal effort, okay? You know that you reap what you sow. So what does 40 to 100 hours mean? Firstly, you have 35 plus hours of video teachings. It's already online, okay? And these are actual teachings. I'm talking every moment. And remember, I don't teach to the lowest common denominator. My teachings can be challenging, especially the grammar and vocabulary teachings. You may want to listen to some videos more than once. You may need to pause the video and do some research, look at the dictionary, look at the notes, look on the internet, whatever it may be. So 35 hours of teaching videos does not mean 35 hours going through it. It may mean 50 or 70 hours because of the time taken to understand it, and sometimes you may need to replay it. Okay, sometimes you don't need to replay it because it's easy, but sometimes also it can be challenging. So you may want to replay it and you may want to pause, you may want to think and do some research. That's why 35 plus hours of video teachings may mean about 50 to 70 hours going through it. And then you got to think about the teaching notes, the templates, the exercises, not only the notes, which go along with the teachings, but I give you a lot of activities and exercises, homework, okay, that you have to do, right? So it takes time to go through all the notes to understand it. It also takes time to do all the actual exercises. So how much time in total you spend on this online course depends on many factors: how hardworking you want to be, whether you want to go through all the teachings or not, how in-depth you want to go through these teachings, what your English level is. Right, so all these factors are involved. I would recommend at the very least 40 to 100 hours. The more, the better. Okay, but it really depends on all these factors, and so you could spend less than 40 hours. You could spend more than 100 hours. Easily, there's enough material, all right, for you to do so. Don't forget something. When you go to a face-to-face class, even though the class may stretch for 2 hours, the actual amount of teaching may only be half of that, right? Because you have a class break always. You have exercises done by students where the teacher will say, okay, class, do this for the next 20 minutes, do this, blah, blah, blah. So that, again, is not actual teaching. So the actual amount of teaching may only be about half, or maybe slightly more than half. So when I tell you that my teaching videos are 35 plus hours, these are really 35 plus hours. If I were to teach it in a classroom face-to-face setting, it will probably be 70 to 80 hours because it includes class break, includes exercises done by students, so on and so forth. Next, fortnightly or weekly live Zoom classes. So you will be able to attend these live Zoom classes. They are live, and if you can't make it, they are recorded, can be played over and over again. Of course, my teaching videos also can be played over and over again. These live Zoom classes, if you don't make it live, you can play it over and over again. But I want you to understand something very important, all right? Because many people think, oh, Zoom classes, yes, I want to go to the Zoom classes. That's the most important thing. No. The Zoom class is not where the most important teachings are taught. The most important teachings are the 35 plus hours of video and 400 plus pages of notes and exercises. That is where the most important teachings are. Okay, that's what I used to, the stuff I used to give my students and teach in class, in my face-to-face class, are all here, all right? So Please don't think, oh, the Zoom class, I have to attend the Zoom class because that's where the most important teachings. No, the most important teachings are already there. 35 plus hours of videos, 400 plus pages of notes. You have to start doing. You can do it anytime you want. You don't have to wait for the Zoom class. What is the Zoom class for? The Zoom class consists of two main parts. Firstly, the main thing is really question and answer. You got any questions, come. I'll answer it. Okay? About my online class, my teaching videos, my materials, etc. Just come and ask. All right? And the second thing is also I may have some teaching activities focusing on one or two components for that particular Zoom class, right? The length is about 1 to 2 hours, depending against how many questions I have, right? And it's going to probably be one evening, probably 7:30 to 9:30 latest Singapore time, right? Please remember, I cannot cater to everybody's timing. So if you can't make it, don't worry, you can watch the recording. And seriously, I tell students, don't worry about the Zoom. For the first few weeks, don't worry about the Zoom. Because you have to go through the 35 hours to or many hours of my teachings which are already on the platform. Then you can ask me questions. If not, you got nothing to ask me, right? Don't come to the Zoom, ask me what should I do. No, it's all there. You just have to follow along, going through the platform. Then when you have questions, come. And if you can't make it, all right, it will be recorded, so you don't have to worry. But please, the Zoom is not the most important part. It is probably the least important part of the online classes. Is the most important part is the 35 plus hours of videos and the notes, templates, etc. Lastly, you have my WhatsApp number. You can ask me any question you want. Okay, that's what I've been doing for my classes, even for the past 10 years. All my students have all my WhatsApp number. They can ask me any questions. I don't know any other teacher who does that, but I've always given my WhatsApp number to my students. I always said that even after the classes, after my face-to-face classes, and you can still ask me questions, not a problem. So what's the price of all of this? Okay, again, 35 hours of teaching videos, 400 plus pages of notes, including the templates, listening, reading, writing, speaking, grammar, vocabulary, academic general training, paper, computer, online, has produced 450 plus IELTS passes. Probably require about 40 to 100 hours of your study time. Live Zoom classes fortnightly or weekly. WhatsApp number to ask me any questions. New teachings added regularly for free. All this, how much does it cost? First ask yourself, what's an IELTS pass worth to you, right? Because many people have failed many times. These are, messages I get regularly every week from students telling me they failed 1 time, 3 times, 5 times. Okay, this person even failed 20 times. All right, hasn't passed yet. My previous student, as I mentioned to you before, he failed 15 times before coming to my class. He just needed to get from 6.5 to 7 for his writing. His listening, reading, and speaking, he passed. But his writing, he always got stuck at 6.5, which is very common. So he took 15 times and failed. He spent 5,000 plus. Came to my class, then after that he passed, after using my templates. This person too, 8 times, always got 7.5. Came to my class, finally got 8. Spent $3,000 plus. Same for Joyce, same for Boomer, right? They failed so many times, they spent so much money. Why? Because they underestimated the difficulty of passing the IELTS exam. So please don't do that, right? Don't try to stinge on proper preparation and then think that you can do it by yourself, and then in the end you waste. Every exam costs US 250 Singapore dollars, US $250, okay, which is about nearly 350 to 400 Singapore dollars or so, right? Now my face-to-face class used to be 600 Singapore dollars, 500 and 600. I did that for many years, but that did not include all these latest materials, which is going to be even more effective in helping students pass the exam. Yet it still produced all these results. Okay, so the materials that I used previously were not as good, but it still produced 450 plus student testimonials. You can go to this webpage to read all of them, all here. And also, because writing is the most difficult component, I have many students who come to me because they failed their writing. And then they want help. So all these testimonials are from students who failed their writing at least once before coming to my class, and then after they came to my class, they passed. They increased by 0.5 up to 2.0 after taking my classes. Okay. Now, if you ask me why have I been so successful in helping students pass their IELTS exam and pass their writing, especially because writing is always one of the most difficult components, and the component for many students that prevents them from passing the IELTS exam. I mentioned two things before. I mentioned that I give them templates to improve their grammar and vocabulary, and I also teach grammar and vocabulary. Grammar and vocabulary is the most difficult area in any language exam to improve. So the templates help you to improve in that area, but I also teach grammar and vocabulary, right? Anyway, so what you're going to get is much more if you take my online IELTS classes, and more importantly, it's going to produce much better results, right? So $600 previously for my face-to-face class. Right now, my online class is 400 Singapore dollars only. Okay, so my previous face-to-face class fees, 600. My normal online class fees, 400. But for limited time, only during this launch period, I'm not sure how long this will last, I will be offering a launch discount of $150 off the normal online class price, and therefore the online class launch offer is 250. So only 250 Singapore dollars. By the way, each exam costs right now about 350 Singapore to 400 Singapore dollars. So this class is less than the cost of exam. And if you think and underestimate the difficulty of the IELTS exam, and in the end you just forget about classes, let me just go and try because I think I can pass, I don't need any proper preparation class, and then you fail, then you've already wasted 350 to 400 Singapore dollars. So you might as well just, if you're not sure, prepare properly, and you're going to save a lot of money, all right, if you prepare properly and don't take the exam until you're prepared, right? But the condition of this online launch offer is that you have to have written feedback on the online class, the positives and the negatives, because actually the launch period I want to gain feedback so that I can improve, right? Improve in terms of what I'm offering students. Now, $250 divided by 35 hours, that's about $7 per hour. And actually, if you talk about 35 hours of videos, that's actually more, right? Because the Zoom classes is going to be recorded and placed there. The new materials I'm adding is going to include more hours of teachings. This is a table I asked someone to do some research about all the different IELTS classes in Singapore. And this was the table that was given to me, all right? Other schools, I'm not going to write the name down, but this is what is being offered if you search around, okay? The highest in terms of cost per hour of teaching, $50 per hour in this particular school. You're paying that much, $2,000 or $800. Most of the other schools are actually around 25 to 30 Singapore dollars per hour, okay? Much lower than this, all right? But you're still paying thousands of dollars, or this is an online class. The cheapest per hour of all these other schools is this, only 12 Singapore dollars per hour. But guess what? You have to pay $8,000 because they're giving you 30 weeks of lessons. Okay, so I don't think many people are willing to pay that much. Now, my class is only $7 per hour, and it's the cheapest out of all the classes you can find. All right, $7 per hour. And I mentioned this to you just now. For me, when I say 35 hours of video teachings, that's me teaching every moment for 35 hours. If I were to go to teach that, whatever I teach in a face-to-face class is going to be 70 to 80 hours of class time. Why? Because like I said, in a 2 hours class, you probably get, a bit of time break, a bit of time, students just doing their work, etc., and teacher not doing anything. So when I say 35 hours, is 35 hours pretty much of pure 100% teaching. Okay? All right? So if you think about it this way, then if it's 70 hours, then 250 divided by 70, that's about $350 per hour. $350 per hour in terms of teachings. That's about 1/10, 10% of all these classes in terms of per hour. All right, that is the value in terms of cost. It's definitely, all right, the lowest cost in terms of cost per hour and total cost. 250 is total cost. You won't find any class cheaper than that, and also cost per hour. Even though my IELTS class is the cheapest in Singapore in terms of total cost and cost per hour of teaching. The truth is that costs cannot be the only or even the main factor when considering which IELTS class to take. Right? There are 10 other things that you should consider besides cost, and I'm going to divide them into 1 to 5. It's really about the quality of the class. Number 6 to 9, I'm talking about the medium of the class, especially. Medium being, is this class online or is this class face-to-face? And 10, which is the most important thing, more important than even all of these first 9 things to consider. So let me go step by step. Number 1, experience of the teacher. Is the teacher an IELTS specialist? Does the teacher specialize in IELTS only? Or is the teacher a generalist, meaning that the teacher teaches all different levels of English? Of course, you want somebody who specializes in IELTS. Are the years of experience teaching IELTS? How many years has the teacher taught IELTS and specialized in teaching IELTS for? Is the teacher a hired teacher? Most hired teachers will not have any incentive to really create better materials. So for me, I've taught English and IELTS, and I used to teach English and IELTS, both English and IELTS and other schools from 2003 up to 2010 or 11 or so. In 2003, I taught in Colombia, South America. In 2007, I taught in Australia. 2009, I taught in China. And then I taught also in other schools in Singapore. But then I started to specialize in the last 10 years or so. From 2012 onwards, I specialized in IELTS preparation. I started and I taught in my own school. My school, IELTS University, is a partner of IDP. IDP is a co-owner of the IELTS organization. IELTS is owned by 3 organizations: IDP Australia, British Council, and University of Cambridge. So I've been a partner of IDP for many years. I've actually taught for them also. Number 2, teaching and materials. The second thing to consider besides costs. Does the class just teach to the lowest common denominator? Meaning that they teach in such a way that every student will be able to understand. They teach to the weakest students so that the teachings are not very challenging because they want every student to understand. Of course, then they got to go down to the weakest students. And do they use very general guidelines like you see in these textbooks, as I showed you before? Or do they really give helpful, unique materials whereby they give materials with specific details that will really help you to improve your IELTS? For me, this IELTS Essay Template Level 3, as I showed you already, this is 53 plus pages of templates. This is Level 4 and also Level 5. I'm working on Level 4 and Level 5, which is a sentence template and a supporting sentence template. So these are unique materials that are actually created by myself, so you're not going to find elsewhere. Number 3, do they give a lot of mock tests? This shouldn't be done. Many schools do a lot of mock tests during class time, and one of the reasons actually is because students want to do so, right? They want mock tests, and actually that's the wrong idea and the wrong way of thinking about preparing for the IELTS exam. I'm going to show you why very soon. This is the wrong way to improve, and actually one reason why people fail always. And it's actually a waste of time and money if done in class, because you don't have to do a mock test in class. You can do it at home most of the time. So let me talk a bit more about doing IELTS mock or practice tests and why focusing on doing that is the wrong way to prepare for the IELTS exam. So if you don't already know, an estimated 60 to 80% of students actually fail their IELTS exam on their first try. This is what I get from students. Almost every week I get, many students messaging me through WhatsApp, asking me whether I can help them. Basically, they tell me I failed 1 time, I failed 3 times, 5 times, 10 times, so on and so forth. Okay, and this is very common. Each exam costs around 350 Singapore dollars or around 250 US dollars. So if you failed 3 times, you would have wasted already about $1,000 plus, right? 5 times you wasted about $2,000. Why do so many people fail IELTS? Not just on their first attempt, but over and over again. Because they prepare wrongly. They spend most of their preparation time doing IELTS practice mock tests. And you should know this if you ask your friends, or if you are thinking about how to prepare for the IELTS exam, most of you will be thinking of, oh, I must do some practice or mock tests, right? So every so often I have free live Zoom classes, and sometimes I will poll the students and ask them, what is your main method of preparing for the IELTS exam? Always 70 to 80% will say doing practice or mock tests. So they think that taking IELTS practice or mock test will prepare them for the IELTS exam. That's what many people think. What I mean by mock tests is, of course, taking the practice test, the mock test, under exam conditions, which means using the same conditions as you will get in the actual IELTS exam. The time limit, for example, reading, you only get 60 minutes to answer 40 questions. And of course, no outside materials or help. You can't use the internet. You can't bring a dictionary, of course, to the IELTS exam. So you're going to have these same conditions at home when you do the IELTS practice or mock test. So many students do that. They take the IELTS practice or mock test under exam conditions. Then they check the answers. And then they repeat the process over and over again till they feel prepared or till they don't have enough time. They go through as many, practice mock tests as they can. And their expectation is this, that the more IELTS practice mock tests they complete, the better their score will be, right? But the reality is actually this. You will improve only by a bit, even though you take many practice or mock tests. Why is that so? Firstly, if you understand what a test is a set of questions, exercises, or practical activities to measure someone's skill, ability, or knowledge. So it's all about measuring. It is not about improving. You don't take a test or an exam to improve, right? I mean, that's clear. You don't take a test to improve your level. You take a test to measure your level. So taking IELTS practice or mock test helps you in two ways. Number one, it helps you to measure your English or your IELTS level. Number two, it helps you to be familiar with the IELTS format, the timing system, the question types, so you know what to expect in the actual exam. Now, this is important. You don't want to enter the exam and the first time you see an exam paper and know the format is when you take the actual exam. No, you want to be prepared and be familiar with what to expect before the exam. So this is what taking IELTS practice and mock tests helps you. It helps you to measure your level and helps you to be familiar with the format. It doesn't help you to improve your level by much, and it doesn't help you to get the score you need. Why? Because when you take practice tests under exam conditions, there's a time limit and there's no outside materials. It's just you and your test materials without anything or anyone to help you improve. If so, how can you improve? Because the way to improve in anything in life, whether it be your English, another language, or math, or science, or whatever it may be, you have to add something to your mind. Imagine your mind is a glass. Something needs to be added to you, to your mind, for you to improve. All these are not automatically added to you or your mind when you take a practice or mock test, right? In order to improve your writing, you need to improve your grammar and vocabulary and cohesion and so on and so forth, right? Reading, listening, speaking, right? Something needs to improve. Improvement takes a lot of time. Improvement requires outside materials or help. So in order to improve your listening, reading, writing, and speaking, these are just some of the things that need to improve. Vocabulary is very important. Grammar is very important. And other things, right? Skimming skills, scanning skills, connective speech for listening, understanding connective speech. So these things need to improve, and they are not going to improve when you take mock tests. So Jonathan, you're saying that taking IELTS practice mock tests over and over again is not the best way to prepare for your IELTS exam? Then what's the best way? Well, the way to prepare properly for your IELTS exam or any language exam is through addressing three important areas: test format, test strategies, and language improvement. Okay, when I say test format, I'm talking about familiarity with the IELTS test exam format, and that's what mock test helps you to do. It helps you to be familiar with the format. You need to know the format, right? But that's not the most important thing. That's just a minimal requirement if you want to do well. Number two, test strategies. Just because you know the format doesn't mean you know the strategies to answer the questions, the different question types, how to avoid being tricked, how to be able to answer difficult question types for listening, reading, for writing, for speaking, so on and so forth. You need to have the correct strategies to answer all question types. And language improvement, I'm focused basically on grammar and vocabulary especially. So this is a table showing you the ideal percentage of time you should spend across different areas in your IELTS preparation. Let me go through three of them. Okay, here, self-preparation, what most preparation classes, the percentage they use, and ideal preparation. So for self-preparation, most students will spend 75% of their time and the preparation time focused on test format, a bit on test strategies, and hardly any on language improvement. This is the reason why most students actually fail, right? Because they're focusing on the wrong thing. They just focus on a mock test, and mock tests, the only thing that mock tests will help you do is really only focus on the test format. That's all. Now, if you're a good native English speaker, you may be able to get away with this type of preparation. The problem is that most people who are doing this preparation, most people who are taking the IELTS exam are not native English speakers, right? If you're a native English speaker, you don't need to improve your language and vocabulary that much because your language and vocabulary is really pretty good. But for most non-native English speakers, you need to improve your language and vocabulary a lot. But if you are just taking mock tests over and over again, that's not going to happen. Most preparation classes, this is how it's like. Rather than spending, 75%, maybe you spend about 50% on mock tests. And then you spend more time on test strategies, but you don't spend that much time still on language improvement. Why don't you spend that much time on language improvement? Firstly, because it's very difficult for teachers to teach grammar and vocabulary, especially for grammar, and it's very difficult for students to improve. Nobody likes teaching grammar and vocabulary, especially grammar, right? Nobody likes teaching, nobody likes learning, and therefore they focus on these other areas. Ideal preparation. Of course, the ideal preparation for different people will be different. So I'm just giving you the ideal preparation based on my 10 years plus of teaching experience for the majority of students that take the IELTS exam. The large majority ought to spend about half their time in language improvement because they are not native English speakers. They need to improve their grammar and vocabulary a lot, right? If they want to get the score they want, whether it be 7, whether it be 6, whatever it may be, okay? And they need to take mock tests and be familiar with the test format. They don't have to spend so much time, just 20% of the time is good enough, 30% on test strategies, but the majority of the time needs to be spent on language improvement. And this gets me to the fourth consideration, teachings on grammar and vocabulary, okay? It's very important, as I mentioned. It's very important if you want to get 7 for both writing and speaking, and even if you don't want to get 7. The whole point is that if you are not a native English speaker, you better focus on your grammar and vocabulary. You better go to a class that also teaches you how to improve your grammar and vocabulary. Most classes don't really focus on that. Now, I already mentioned the 2 ways I have taught students how to, I've made sure that students that attend my class are able to improve their grammar and vocabulary. The first way, of course, very important way is the IELTS essay templates. It helps you to use words, phrases, and sentences with high-level grammar, vocabulary, and cohesion, and this is really going to help you improve your grammar in writing, okay? But I don't just leave it at that. I address this problem, this grammar and vocabulary problem, address it and try to deal with it from all angles, not just using templates, but also teaching grammar and vocabulary in depth, right? So there is a large portion of my classes is really focusing on grammar and vocabulary because most students really need to improve that. Number 5, another consideration, recommendations, referrals by immigration agencies, ex-students, IDP, etc., etc. I've taught IELTS preparation also for IDP in the past and also for immigration agencies. Now, of course, if you want to know which class to take, always look at the referrals. Do they have recommendations and referrals and ratings from all these organizations, their past students, so on and so forth? For my classes, I've been recommended in a Facebook immigration group, 145,000 members. Now, I don't speak this language. I think this is Burmese. So this is by a student of mine who actually told me that my information is in this group. And this is a 150,000 Facebook group page that actually helps Burmese people to prepare for immigration and prepare for the IELTS exam. Okay, so my information is actually available in this group. Many other immigration agencies and consultants recommend my classes, not just in Singapore, but overseas. All right, so for this person, he says that we've been sending a materials and recommending you to our clients in the past 2 years. this student of mine said, my immigration agent in KL asked for your contact as one of his clients from JB wants some help in IELTS. Hope it's okay with you. Another immigration agency in Singapore. I would like to introduce Jonathan Koh of IELTS University. He will be of great help to you as per feedback from previous clients who attended his course, including myself. This person actually works for the agency, but also needed to take the IELTS exam, so he took my classes, and he says that my classes have had good reviews and good recommendations from their previous clients too. Another agency said that I've previously given your contact number to 7 prospective and or existing clients. I'll continue to refer individuals who require IELTS coaching. You must understand something about immigration consultants and agencies. Okay, they recommend to their clients only the best. Why? Their agency fees depend on their clients passing IELTS. Without passing IELTS, the immigration process cannot continue and they won't get their fees. So a lot of immigration agencies, if you know, what they do is you pay initially for a price to help you to start the immigration process, but the second half and the main process will only be able to begin and continue when you pass your IELTS exam. So they cannot continue the rest of the immigration process unless you pass your IELTS exam. This is one of the major barriers for most people who want to immigrate, their IELTS exam, right? And the fees that they get is cost in the thousands of dollars, not hundreds, okay, thousands of dollars. These people pay thousands of dollars for immigration agencies to help them. So many immigration agencies recommend me because they see how I've helped many of their clients pass, some of whom failed many times before attending my IELTS class. So I don't actually give them referral fees when they recommend students to me, because I know that I'm more important to them than they are to me, because every student I help to pass their IELTS exam, when they continue the immigration process, they'll get thousands of dollars, right? That's why they each the class that they recommend is so important. So these are some of my students who have passed, who recommended my class. Please know that, of course, I have 450 plus students who have passed, and they also recommend my classes, obviously. Now I want to get to the second part of this, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And this is where I talk about the medium of the class. Medium meaning where do you take your class? Is it face-to-face or online? I want to talk about 4 considerations, okay? And basically the reason why I started to move from face-to-face to online classes. Let's look at number 6. Can teachings be fully absorbed and understood? So there's no use attending a face-to-face class but not being able to fully absorb and understand what's being taught. If the teachings are too easy, such that everyone can easily absorb and understand them, they probably won't be challenging enough to actually get you to improve. If the teachings are challenging and will help you improve, some students may need more time to absorb and understand that. And that's actually what happened in my classes when I taught my face-to-face classes. As I mentioned to you just now, many students found it challenging because I always push them, right? And they wanted to attend the class more than once. And of course, I really can't allow them to do so. I just said, go do your homework, because anyway, a lot of the improvement is going to be in the homework. But so I started to realize that actually, if you provide good teachings face-to-face, many students will be challenged. And unless you allow them to repeat your class over and over again, which no school allows, okay, then what's going to happen is that the best way for students to really absorb your teachings to put it online so they can replay the recording over and over again. So that's one reason why I decided to teach online, so that I can provide challenging teachings that I know will help students improve. With the class being online and the videos being able to be played over and over again, that will ensure that students will fully absorb and understand the challenging teachings that can help them truly improve. So number 7, how much personal attention and support do you get? Many students think that there will be more personal attention and support given by the teacher in a face-to-face class. That's actually a huge misconception. Okay, this is not true. In my 10 years of teaching face-to-face, most students don't ask many questions in class, as number 1, they're too shy. Number 2, they haven't really had the time to absorb everything yet. That's why I gave my face-to-face class students, when I was teaching face-to-face, my WhatsApp number. They could ask me questions anytime, even after their face-to-face classes end. most students ask questions through WhatsApp outside of class after they've absorbed everything. Okay? Students need time to absorb everything. Then they can ask good questions that will help them learn and improve. Just because you want to ask a question doesn't mean it is a good question. Good questions come after you really absorb the teaching. Then you ask good questions. Then you really improve. If you just ask questions, that you really don't need to ask, then it's kind of a waste of time. Okay, ask good questions. That shows that you really know what's going on. And that's the reason why I give students my WhatsApp. That's the reason why in my online IELTS classes, I have Zoom classes every 2 weeks that you can ask questions. And that's the reason why my videos, my teaching videos are online, so you can replay it over and over again, absorb it, then ask good questions, understand what I'm teaching, then ask good questions. If you're thinking of taking face-to-face classes, find out if you have the teacher's WhatsApp number and find out if you can ask questions anytime, even after your face-to-face classes. And most likely you can't. Okay, obviously for my face-to-face classes, that's what I did. Even my students who attended my classes many years ago still have my WhatsApp number, and sometimes they still WhatsApp me questions. Okay, I decided to move to online classes so that I can provide good and challenging teachings that will help students improve. And I know some will need to replay my teachings over and over again, and thus putting it online will be ideal for this. And once they've absorbed my teachings, they can ask better questions if they have any, and they will always have my WhatsApp number and the fortnightly Zoom class to ask questions. You always have my WhatsApp number, and you can also attend the fortnightly weekly Zoom classes. Of course, I know that all of you are adults and you're not going to message me almost every single day with stupid questions, right? Because my students don't do that, right? Because there's so much to learn online, the videos, the notes. I'm always free to answer questions. Well, I'm not that I'm always free to answer questions, all right? But sometimes I'm not free, then I'll reply you, right? But I'm always answer all my students' questions, right? And you have the time to absorb the teachings, and then you can ask better questions after that. And you have my fortnightly, weekly Zoom classes also, right? Let's move on to number 8, the study mindset being encouraged. Number 8 and number 9 are very important, even though people seldom think about it. The study mindset being encouraged. Is this a right study mindset? For face-to-face class, I started to realize something. The study mindset encouraged is often this. Students think, I prefer to go to face-to-face class as well. Discipline, motivate, force me to go to classes and study. And along with this, the idea in their head that I will focus on my face-to-face class teachings and prioritize that over homework, because obviously they go to face-to-face class to get motivated, to get disciplined, to force themselves to study, right? So do you think they're going to do their homework? No, there's no discipline, there's no motivation. There's no one to force them to study. The teacher's not going to their homes and forcing them to study. So their mindset is wrong. They will think I will focus on my face-to-face class teachings and prioritize that over homework, so as I don't have much motivation to do anything outside class, right? If you need face-to-face classes to motivate you to study, you are not going to do anything outside that face-to-face class. Your homework, you're not going to do your homework. That is the reality. Okay, so I started to realize this very early on. Students will attend face-to-face classes but have no time for homework. They attended face-to-face class to force themselves to study in class. Even though I told them about the importance of doing their homework, most students wouldn't do so because they didn't have the correct mindset. Their mindset to begin with was, I'm going to class so it forced me to study. Face-to-face classes encourage them to have the wrong mindset, okay? To prioritize what they learn during their face-to-face classes over everything else. And they ended up not doing much of their homework. This is one reason why I decided to teach online. I know many who only wanted face-to-face classes will have the wrong mindset. Through teaching online, I wanted to let students know that they cannot prioritize face-to-face teachings over their homework because there's no face-to-face teachings anyway. Everything is important. Everything is online. There's no division in my online classes. I tell you, watch the videos, go and do this, go and do this activity, go and do that activity, go and watch more videos. Everything is online and everything needs to be done. So I want you to come with the correct mindset initially that you are going to do everything. There's no division, there's no prioritizing face-to-face classes versus over the homework. No, There's no division in my online classes. So students have to be in the right mindset if they want to pass their IELTS. They cannot rely on attending face-to-face class to force them to study and learn. If they did so, they will not do their homework because nobody is forcing them to do so. They would then fail IELTS. Number 9, the study routine being encouraged. Is it consistent or not? This is one very important area that's very neglected, just like the previous one, which is the study mindset. So face-to-face classes encourage a very inconsistent study routine. What do I mean by that? Okay, the student has to wait for the first face-to-face class to start, and that's a waste of time. The student has to wait for subsequent face-to-face classes to continue to start before they actually study anything or learn anything. Why? Because everything according to face-to-face classes happens within the face-to-face class, and therefore you are dependent on the face-to-face class to learn something. And that really limits the ability to learn in advance and learn a lot, and it really limits your your ability for the study routine to be consistent. Why does it limit the ability for your study routine to be consistent? Because of a lot of unforeseen, uncontrollable events that happen. Okay, if a class is missed due to some of these unforeseen, uncontrollable events, for example, your boss tells you you cannot attend the class because you got to work, because one of your colleagues is not available, you have issues at home in your family, sickness, issues in your hometown, you have to go back, whatever it may be. There are so many unforeseen, uncontrollable circumstances that will pop up that you, of course, cannot foresee, right? I've been teaching for 10 years. I've seen it all, okay? So the point is this. If a class is missed due to uncontrollable, unforeseen events, and if a free makeup is given, not all the time a free makeup is given. Most schools do not give free makeups. But if a free makeup is given, then student has to wait weeks to take the class again, which is another waste of time. On the other hand, online classes encourage a more consistent study routine. What do I mean by this? Students can study anytime and anywhere, as teachings are online. You can study anytime you want. You don't have to wait for the face-to-face class. Student can plan a study schedule that will face much fewer disruptions. If, for example, okay, maybe there will be a disruption. You cannot, you plan to study tonight for 2 hours, but your boss says you have to work. Okay, so what happens? You don't have to wait for, if it's a face-to-face class, you have to wait for another few weeks before you attend that class, right? So you're wasting a lot of time. But if you cannot, whatever unforeseen circumstances, okay, that's fine. Just do it the next day. If you have to go back to your hometown, guess what? You still have access to the internet. You can still study there. You can study in the airport. You can study anywhere. So disruptions will not have such a dramatic effect on your study schedule and your study routine, which is very important, right? So students can plan ahead and not be dependent on face-to-face class attendance. This is very freeing, all right? The moment you start to realize, okay, I can plan my study, is not going to be interrupted. There's, unforeseen circumstances. They are not going to interrupt me much, as they would interrupt the study schedule of a face-to-face class student. Then you can achieve your goals. Because disruptions to study schedule and routine causes students to lose momentum, enthusiasm, and ultimately motivation to study. Okay, I've seen this over and over again. This is why most face-to-face class students actually don't attend all the classes they pay for, and they drop out. Why? Because they encounter so many unforeseen, uncontrollable events, and their plans initially, I'm going to plan to finish this within 4 weeks. No, it gets disrupted over and over again, and then they lose enthusiasm, they lose momentum, they lose the desire to immigrate. All right, I've seen this over and over again. That's why I don't really like face-to-face classes, teaching face-to-face classes, because I know students, a lot of them are going to drop out. That is the reality. Many students, maybe not most, but many students will not attend all the classes they pay for. Why? Because of all this, all right? Okay, so let me quickly do a quick recap of my IELTS classes before I mention the 10th consideration. as I mentioned before, this is what my online IELTS classes consist of. Basically 35 hours of videos and 400 plus pages of notes addressing all of this. And you get fortnightly live Zoom classes and my WhatsApp number to ask me any question. The normal price is $400 Singapore dollars, but during this launch period is 250 Singapore dollars. And as I mentioned, my classes, my online IELTS classes is not only the cheapest, if you compare it to other IELTS classes in Singapore, but also the cheapest in terms of costs per hour teaching. Okay, only $7 per hour, or even $3.50 per hour, if you consider the fact that 35 plus hours of teaching is equivalent to about 70 hours of face-to-face classes. All right, that's about 10 times, at least 10 times cheaper than the market price. But as I said, as cheap as my IELTS classes are, cost should not be the only consideration. And I mentioned all these factors, 10 other things to consider besides cost. I mentioned 9 of them. Let me quickly go through the 9. Experience of the teacher, teaching and materials. Does the class give a lot of mock tests, which they shouldn't? Do they have teachings on grammar and vocabulary? Are there recommendations, referrals? And in terms of the medium of the class, whether it's face-to-face or online IELTS classes, you got to understand which one is better in terms of helping you to fully absorb and understand their teachings, which one is better in terms of giving you personal attention and support, in terms of the study mindset that's being encouraged and the study routine that's being encouraged. So all these 9 factors you have to take into consideration beyond the cost. But there's one factor more important than cost or any of these 9 other factors. The most important thing to consider, because teachers should be in the business of helping students pass their IELTS exam, is the results of their students. I believe you agree with me. It doesn't matter what I've said in terms of those 9 factors and even the cost. Ultimately, you are looking to pass the IELTS exam. So look at the results that the classes you're thinking of taking have produced. For my classes, I've helped 450 plus students pass their IELTS exam after taking my class. You can go to this webpage to read all those 450 plus messages there. And also to this webpage, if you want to find out more about how students who failed their IELTS writing before coming to my class passed it immediately after coming to my classes. All right, so writing is the most difficult component and the main reason why students fail their IELTS. If they fail their IELTS, most likely they're definitely going to fail writing. Okay, most people fail writing and therefore they fail IELTS. So writing is the most difficult component and something I've really worked hard in terms of creating materials, templates, so on and so forth. And these are the results. So once again, all right, if you're interested during the launch period, you got to WhatsApp me, let me know that you're interested and ask me whether it's still during the launch period. If it is during the launch period, you will get the 250 Singapore dollars price rather than 400 Singapore dollars. And I'm going to even sweeten this deal even more. If you purchase it during the launch period, the price is not only 250 instead of 400 Singapore dollars, but I'm going to give you unlimited fortnightly live Zoom classes. What do I mean by unlimited? If you don't purchase it during the launch period, the cost will be 400 Singapore dollars, and most likely I'm going to give you just about 2 months, maximum 3 months of live Zoom classes. But if you purchase it during the launch period, it's 250 Singapore dollars and unlimited. Now, what do I mean by unlimited? It means that if you're taking the exam in 6 months or 12 months time, you will still be able to attend all the fortnightly live Zoom classes. Of course, it doesn't mean that it will be forever until I die, because I'm not sure when I'm going to teach IELTS until. Definitely, it's still going to be quite a number of years at least. I do not foresee myself stopping in terms of my teaching of IELTS. So as long as I still have these live Zoom classes and I still teach online, you are able to attend. If you're taking the IELTS in 6 months or 12 months or 2 years, then my recommendation, quickly purchase the course right now, because you not only get the cheaper price, but you also get the unlimited fortnightly live Zoom classes. So if you're interested, please WhatsApp me at +65 9768 1054. Ask me if the launch period is still happening and that you get the launch price. If not, then it will be 400 Singapore dollars and you won't get this unlimited. Now, let me quickly show you again. Everything is going to be in this platform. 35 plus hours of videos, 400 plus pages of notes already in the platform. It covers IELTS listening, reading, speaking, writing, grammar, and vocabulary. These are some images that you can see. This is directly from the platform itself. All the videos, the notes are already there. Okay, the notes are here. All right, or you'll be given a link to the Google Drive where you can download all the materials. All right, so again, if you are interested, please WhatsApp me at +65 9768 1054. And for those who have waited to the end, you want to get those free gifts I mentioned throughout this video, what you have to do is just WhatsApp me and message me IELTS templates please, and I'll give it to you. All right, now frequently asked questions. These are the 12 most frequently asked questions about my IELTS classes. Right? Why did you stop teaching face-to-face? What's the difference between your previous face-to-face classes and your current online IELTS classes? What's Jonathan's experience teaching IELTS? Attending a face-to-face class is better or be more disciplined, right? All these are pretty much taken from questions that students have actually asked me over the months and over the years. All right. So if you want to find out even more answers to some of the questions that you see here, what you can do is you can go to this website, IELTSuniversity.com/FAQ. All right. Let me show you again, IELTSuniversity.com/FAQ. Once again, if you are deciding which IELTS classes to take, think about not just the costs, my classes already being the cheapest, but also these 10 considerations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, addressing the quality of the class. 6, 7, 8, 9 is really about the medium. Think carefully if you are thinking of taking a face-to-face class, and think about number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9. The reason why I started teaching IELTS online is because teachings can be more fully absorbed and understood. There's better personal attention and support. It encourages you to have the right study mindset. It encourages a consistent study routine. And that's the reason why I moved to teaching online. But finally, the most important thing you have to really ask yourself is, what are the results of the students? So if you're interested to find out more and to take my class, please WhatsApp me at +65 9768 1054. I hope to hear from you soon.